Hey, seventh grade. So today we're going to talk about The Giver a little bit more. Before we get started reading, we'll start chapter 1 tomorrow, but we're going to talk about genre today. So remembering genre is the category of book or story that you are reading. So we've talked about some different genres this year. So with the Greek gods and goddesses, we talked about myths. We didn't get a chance to finish Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So that was a legend. We've talked about, nonfiction, different kinds of fiction. It's not just fiction and nonfiction. There are lots of different kinds of fiction. So there's historical fiction, there's realistic fiction, there's fantasy, which is a type of fiction. And then we have the fiction that we're going to be reading about in The Giver. So yesterday we talked about some of the themes that you're going to see through The Giver. So today we're going to talk about the genre. So let me share the screen here. Takes it just a second. And we're going to talk about dystopian fiction. Okay, so dystopian can also fit into what we call science fiction. And it's taking it just a minute to load here. Here we go. All right, so dystopia and utopia, okay? But they both fit under the category of science fiction. So let's get this to present. Make life a little easier. Today would be fabulous. Technology, right? Same as at the classroom. Sometimes we have to wait a minute. So I'm just gonna get it, while this is loading, I'm gonna get a jump on this. So dystopian or science fiction is a story or a book that often takes place in the future. I don't know why we're doing this. Okay. So finally, we're here. Dystopia. Dystopia is a fictional society that is in some important way undesirable or frightening, so something a little scary. Such societies appear in many works of fiction, particularly in stories set in the future. Dystopias are often characterized by dehumanization, so making people not seem like people, okay? Totalitarian governments, that's always a fun word to say, so a government that controls everything that you do. Environmental disaster, we're kind of going through that right now, right? Decline in society, so something happens in the world to, make less people. Technology versus humanity, so sometimes you have stories about, robots starting to think on their own and take over the world and things like that. So those are all categorized as dystopia. So dystopian fiction is often used to raise real-world concerns that may become present in the future. For example, pollution, poverty, political repression, totalitarianism. So these things that could either wipe out people or kill a lot of people and not leave a lot of people left in the world and really change things. And this kind of relates to, what we're going through right now. We've got this pandemic happening. And so we're all staying home to keep us as safe as possible and to, stop the spread of this virus that's happening. So this is a real world concern that could be present in the future, right? We've talked in class about pollution and what that can do to the world. So dystopian novels are the ones that say, what if this happened? And taking a look at life, what it might be like if we have a huge disaster. So examples, so The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins is an example of a dystopian novel. It presents a totalitarian world where children are pitted against each other to the death. Watch video below to see what a dystopia looks like, and we're not going to do that at the moment. Other movies, TV shows, or novels that use the dystopia genre that you can think of. So, if you like science fiction, if you like reading books about future events, so that could be a dystopian type of book. So a utopia is the opposite of a dystopia. It's a society possessing highly desirable or perfect qualities. The term has been used to describe both intentional communities that attempt to create an ideal society and fictional societies portrayed in literature. Sometimes a fictional story may seem utopic, but upon closer examination, it's actually a dystopia. So think about it. We don't have all the same idea of what would make life perfect for us and what a perfect world would be. We all have those different ideas. So could there really be a utopia where the world is perfect for every person in it? That seems kind of impossible, right? But some people believe that um, that is something that could happen. So, but there's, I don't know, I think there's always somebody that's going to be unhappy or somebody that's going to be treated unfairly in somebody else's idea of a perfect world. So examples of utopia. So the film Pleasantville is an example of a utopia. However, by the end of the film, the society is not as perfect as it seems. So, and it says watch the video below. Don't watch that one because the link is broken. So it's not that one doesn't work. So other movies, TV shows, or novels that use the utopia genre, right? Where everything seems perfect. The thing is with a lot of those, everything is not as perfect as it seems. So science fiction is a genre of fiction dealing with imaginative content such as futuristic settings, futuristic science and technology. Science fiction has been used by authors as a device to discuss philosophical ideas such as identity, desire, morality, and social structure. Science fiction is largely based on writing rationally about alternative possible worlds or futures. It is similar to, but differs from fantasy in that within the context of the story, its imaginary elements are largely possible. So fantasy deals with a lot of times magic or the supernatural, whereas science fiction deals with, you know, this could be possible in the future because, you know, we may have the technology to invent that. We've talked in class before about, you know, people in the past and how they thought about things and how those people aren't stupid, right? They were making their best guesses based on what they knew at the time. So for us, what we know at this time, you know, and we've talked in class before, your kids someday, you know, 20 years from now are going to be doing things and participating in things that we can't even think of at the moment. So that future is science fiction. So science fiction, when we read about, you know, machines that can transport you in an instant, or, you know, living on Mars or living on other planets, that's science fiction. It's not fantasy. It can't happen yet, but it could happen in the future as technology advances. Okay, so science fiction, you know, could be a possibility in the future. Now, it could be, you know, 5 years in the future. It could be 1,000 years in the future. Depends on how it's written. So examples, the film The Island is an example of science fiction. I believe that link is also not working, so don't do that. Science fiction movies, things that, you know, have technology that take place in the future. The Giver. So this all relates to The Giver. So The Giver follows conventions from each of these genres. So they all fit into science fiction together, but dystopian and utopian. So things that are wrong in a society, right? And a society that tries to be perfect. So as we're reading, consider which characteristics of a utopia, dystopia, and science fiction are present in this novel, and we will come back to that. Okay, and we're not going to go into the post-reading of it. That's the main thing I want you to know right now, is that this is a novel, that it's a science fiction novel, and it incorporates the idea of a dystopia and a utopia as well. So keep that in mind. No assignment on the novel today, just watching the video to make sure that you understand what the genre means. As we go through the novel, I will be asking you questions that are based on those ideas of dystopia and utopia. So please make sure that you watch that and you understand the differences and what they are, okay? All right, so we'll post the first chapter of The Giver tomorrow for you to go ahead and get started. Both the video read along with me and just the PDF of chapter 1 by itself. So see you later.